She thought it was just another call, but those words changed everything. The warning came on an ordinary evening, spoken softly but heavy enough to change the course of a life. It was not shouted, not dramatic, yet it settled in her chest like a storm waiting to break. That single warning, given by the man who had always been her shelter, would follow her through every choice she made, every step she took away from home, and every moment she stood alone, wondering whether love was worth the cost of losing everything she had ever known. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of difficult choices, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. She grew up in a small house where the walls were thin but the values were strong. Her father had built his life slowly, brick by brick, after losing everything once before. He believed in discipline, in reputation, in protecting what little stability he had fought so hard to earn. To him, love was not something that rushed in like a flood. It was something that arrived carefully, approved by family, weighed against consequences. His daughter was his pride, the quiet kind who listened more than she spoke, who carried her dreams quietly so they would not disturb anyone else's peace. The warning he gave her was simple, but it carried the weight of his past failures and fears. It was about the world being unkind to women who trusted too easily, about choices that could not be undone, about paths that once taken would never lead back home. He did not forbid her from living, but he made it clear that some doors, once opened, would close others forever. She nodded when he spoke, because she loved him and because she had never imagined a life where she would have to choose between her heart and her home. Life, however, rarely asks permission before changing direction. She met him in a season when she was beginning to believe there was more to life than safety. He was not extraordinary in the way movies describe love, but he was present, attentive, and kind in a way that felt rare. Around him, she felt seen without having to explain herself. He listened to her silences and respected her boundaries, and slowly, without realizing it, she found herself imagining a future that looked nothing like the one her father had planned for her. The struggle did not come from loving him, it came from loving everyone else too. Every time she returned home, she felt the warning echo in her mind. She saw it in her father's tired eyes, in the way he looked at her as if trying to memorize her face in case something changed. She began to live between two worlds, careful not to let them touch. One world was filled with warmth, possibility, and a version of herself that laughed more freely. The other was built on loyalty, gratitude, and the fear of becoming a disappointment. As her feelings grew stronger, the weight of secrecy grew heavier. She started to notice how easily joy could turn into guilt. Moments that should have been happy were followed by sleepless nights. She questioned herself constantly, wondering if love was making her selfish or brave. The warning was no longer just her father's voice, it became her own, whispering doubts every time she dared to hope. The turning point came quietly, as life-changing moments often do. A small misunderstanding turned into a reminder of how fragile happiness can be. For the first time, she saw how quickly love could demand sacrifices she was not sure she was ready to make. She imagined a future where she might lose her father's trust, her family's support, and the safety she had always known. The fear was overwhelming, and for a moment, she considered walking away from everything that felt uncertain. But growth rarely comes from choosing the easiest path. In her solitude, she began to reflect not just on the warning, but on why it had been given. She realized her father's words were not meant to cage her, but to protect her from pain he had once endured. He was not afraid of her loving someone, he was afraid of her being broken by a world that could be cruel. Understanding this did not erase the conflict, but it softened it. It allowed her to see that love and caution did not have to be enemies. Slowly things began to change, not around her, but within her. She started to find her voice, to define what she believed love should look like. She learned that respect was not proven through secrecy or fear, but through honesty and patience. She stopped rushing her decisions and allowed herself the space to grow stronger before choosing any direction. The warning no longer felt like a threat, It became a reminder to move forward with wisdom. Time has a way of revealing truths that emotions alone cannot. As months passed, she saw who stayed consistent and who faded when things became difficult. She learned the difference between attention and commitment, between promises and actions. These lessons were painful at times, but they shaped her into someone more aware of her worth. She began to understand that love should never require her to abandon herself or the people who shaped her. One evening, sitting alone, she realized how far she had come from the girl who had silently nodded at her father's warning. She was still respectful, still loving, but no longer afraid to think for herself. She had not chosen rebellion, nor had she chosen blind obedience. Instead, she chose growth. She chose to believe that her life could honor her family and her heart at the same time, even if the path was slow and uncertain. The most powerful change happened when she stopped seeing her life as a series of warnings and started seeing it as a journey of learning. She understood that her father's love was not conditional on her perfection, and that her own happiness did not have to come at the cost of destroying relationships. Healing did not come from dramatic confrontations, but from patience, understanding, and the courage to wait for what truly felt right. As the story reaches its final moments, take a second and comment below with one word that this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you think. In the end, the warning remained with her, but it no longer frightened her. It became part of her strength, a quiet guide rather than a shadow. She carried her father's concern in one hand and her own dreams in the other, walking forward carefully but confidently. Her story was not about choosing love over family or family over love. It was about choosing herself with honesty and compassion. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own struggles, sacrifices, or silent battles, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and leave a heartfelt comment. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive, reminding us all that even the hardest warnings can lead us toward wisdom, healing, and hope.